Okay. Welcome everyone to our Advances in Dementia Research webinar. This is a webinar series that is co-hosted by the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto as well as the TDRA, which is the Toronto Dementia Research Alliance. My name is Julie and I am representing the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto. This series discusses recent updates in dementia research and highlights dementia research studies occurring across Toronto. Before we begin, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto's YouTube channel, as well as the TDRA. We do ask that you keep yourself muted, and any questions that you do have, you can enter them into the chat box. We will get to as many of them as we can at the end of the webinar. I'd like to give you a little bit of background in terms of the Alzheimer's Society in case there are those who are joining that is unfamiliar. So the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto provides free counseling, education, programming, and information to people who are living with dementia, their family and friends, healthcare professionals, as well as the general public. You do not need to have a diagnosis to access our services, and we service the whole M postal code. We do service all dementias, okay? And even if you do not have a diagnosis, we will provide service from pre-diagnosis to supports after the person with dementia has passed away. There are a couple of ways to access our information. So we do have an education platform for www.alseducate.ca. So if you prefer self-paced learning to stop and go whenever you please, that would be a good option. And to find out some of our upcoming events and programs, you can certainly go to our our calendar page that's listed down there. So alz.to/events. I'd like to also tell you a little bit about our partner, the TDRA. Okay. So established in 2012, the Toronto Dementia Research Alliance, or the TDRA, is a collaboration among the University of Toronto, Baycrest, the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health, Ontario Shore Centre for Mental Health Sciences, Sunnybrook, Unity Health Toronto, and the University Health Network. Together with its partners, TDRA aims to strengthen the link between basic science and clinical research to better understand, prevent, and treat dementia. So I would like to pass this off to my partner at the TDRA, Ruth, to tell you a little bit more. Ruth, you may have to unmute yourself.
I need to unmute myself. Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Ruth Kruger, and I'm working in knowledge translation for the Toronto Dementia Research Alliance. I'm very pleased to be here and co-host this webinar today. So let me tell you a little bit about these the initiatives. If we can, we're on slide 4. Yes, perfect. AST, or the Alzheimer's Society of Toronto, and the TDRA partnered on an initiative to make research more accessible to everyone. The Toronto Dementia Network, or TDN, is a website that lists dementia-related programs and services across Toronto. On this website, we created a section called Research Studies, which lists dementia studies that are open for participation across the city. Each study is listed is led by a TDRA-affiliated scientist or scientists, and has been approved by a research ethics board. There's studies for people living with Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia, mild cognitive impairment, those at risk of developing dementia, healthy volunteers, and caregivers or care partners. These studies are all summarized in plain language. To get started, the website link is shown here in orange. Information about the TDN can also be found on the AST and TDRA websites. Next slide, please. On the website, there are 2 main pathways. First, you can browse for a study using search terms, filters, and quick searches. When you find a study you're interested in, you can fill out the contact form and be connected with a research team who will enroll you in the study if you're eligible. On the bottom here, if you're not sure where to start, you can fill out a questionnaire to be matched to a study. Any information you enter will be securely stored and protected, of course. Next slide. This is what the website looks like. When on the page, if you're looking for something specific, for example, Alzheimer's disease studies, you can type it into the search bar along the top. You can then hit submit with that term or apply more filters like the type of study, age group, target population, or the study location, and then hit submit. Alternatively, you can use the quick search buttons we have in the blue boxes. But if you'd rather fill out a questionnaire to be matched to the study, then click Match Me to the Study quick search box, or scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll see this orange button that says Can't find a study you're interested in, which will also take you to the questionnaire. So each study summary, as shown by the task sequencing and dementia study box on the left, describes what the study is about, who can participate, the location, and the time requirement, all in plain language. The studies being discussed today are listed on the TDN, so you'll be able to read more and connect to the study teams there. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. Before I do, just a reminder to keep any questions, if you can, till the end of the webinar for our question and answer period. But feel free to type them into the chat throughout and we'll keep track and answer them at the end. So we're grateful today to be joined by Dr. Arlene Astell. Dr. Astell is Director of the Dementia Aging Technology Engagement, or DATE, lab at KITE at the University Health Network in Toronto. She's also an associate professor in the Department of Occupational Sciences and Occupational Therapy and Department of Psychiatry at the University of Toronto, and a full professor of psychology at Northumbria University in the UK. Dr. Astell has more than 20 years of experience developing and evaluating interventions to support people to age as well as possible, including those living with dementia. Dr. Astell will be introducing this important topic of rehabilitation for mild cognitive impairment and dementia to us, and then she'll be familiarizing us with two of her related studies that are found on the TDN. Now, with no further ado, I welcome Dr. Astell.
Okay, hello. Hello.
Yep, we can hear you.
Can you see my screen as well? Perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much, Ruth, for the invitation and the introduction, and welcome everybody. I can't say it's nice to see you because I can't see you, but it's nice to know you're here listening. As Ruth said, I'm going to do a little introduction to the work that we do, and a bit about the concept of rehabilitation with this population and how we approach that, and then tell you about some of the projects that we're currently doing, that we're recruiting for through at the moment. So sometimes I encounter some curiosity about the idea of rehabilitation for people with cognitive impairment, particularly progressive cognitive impairment like dementia, because we have this idea that rehabilitation is about recovery and improvement and getting back to where we were. However, if we look at the WHO definition, I think it really helps to explain certainly the approach that we have, which is about optimizing functionality and reducing disability of individuals. And I think if you look at it in that way, then it really helps to set a context for how we can use different approaches to support people who are living with progressive cognitive decline, and try to reduce the impact of that, both sort of individually, but also how they're interacting with their environment. So that's very much sort of is how we come at this, is what things can we do to optimize, to maintain, to leverage people's retained abilities and keep them doing things that are important to them for as long as possible. And so that's really what the DATE Lab was established to explore. I've actually been working with technology and people living with dementia and MCI more recently, but since about 2001. And when we received some funding to create something, which I'm just going to show you, which was called Circa. And the reason I mention this is because it was set up as a conversation support. And I think it illustrates the sort of approach, because we were asked by someone, I suppose, from a long-term care setting, who said, well, we have people who are living, who move into our long-term care, and their families find it difficult over time to have conversations with them, because they don't remember what they were talking about. They don't have much to say. They repeat things, and so the families don't come so often, or their visits are shorter. And they said, is there anything you could make that would address that problem? And so we started out trying out different things, like using some photographs, playing music, video clips, and you can see some screenshots here of what's in it. And what we ended up with is this multimedia database. And you might be thinking, well, what's that got to do with sort of rehabilitation? But actually, to me, this project really exemplifies everything that we've tried to do, because what we found was, for most of the people who were living with dementia, the reason they struggled to have the conversations was they couldn't remember what had been said 2 or 3 turns earlier. So they could still have turns in a conversation, but they couldn't keep track. Whereas when we presented a screen, like it might be this one here with the record player, or they could pick a movie clip, short clip. Whatever was on the screen is what they were going to be talking about. So the screen provided a prompt, and that meant that their longer term memory, which was much more intact, could be utilized. We could make the most of that, but minimize their problems with the short-term memory or the working memory. So that really was eye-opening to me, coming from a background in experimental psychology, where you're sort of looking for very clear sort of, well, people can do this or they can't do that. And it really helped to say, well, if we can use technology to mitigate or minimize some of the difficulties, but also expand the things people can still do, that could be a good way forward. And I've just got a little clip here of some people using Circa, and I do apologize for the background noise, but they were in a room where they were laying the tables for lunch. So there's a bit of clattering, but hopefully you get the gist of the conversation.
Music video, photograph. I think music would be worthwhile looking at. Well, that's the screen, Joan. Bring it up. Right. Can you read Bloody than another? That would be lovely to look at that. Gershwin's music. Would you like that? Or Elvis. Elvis. Oh, I think we put it now. Here he comes. Oh, look at that. My mother thought that was horrible. There'll never be another one. I certainly don't. People. That is remember the music. Yeah. Because I love you. Whose legs? Nobody can wriggle their ass.
Now, I don't know if you caught there in the English accent and the clattering what she said, but she was commenting on Elvis's characteristic wiggle, shall we say. Well, what I hope you got a sense of there was how the screen and the way we had co-created it with people with the layout made it easy for people to select. You saw the lady with the pink jacket chose something. Illustrates how, you know, people could still read, they remembered the music, and how it supported the conversation. And I have to say, this was the first project I worked on, as I say, from it's actually 2001 we started it. And we've done many different pieces of research with it, including quite a large trial with partners in Europe. And we found that actually it improved, both significantly improved cognitive scores, which was quite interesting to find in people who were living in long-term care, but also improved quality of life. And this was maintained over time. And more recently, in the pandemic, we started making a version with Canadian content. And it took a lot longer than planned because of the pandemic primarily. But we do have a Canadian version, which we just started testing just this month. In fact, the first session was on Tuesday. So we've got a Canadian version with Canadian contents. primarily music and TV shows and adverts and so on. So if anybody's interested in that, do contact me. But as I say, I like to use Circa as an opening to explaining our sort of approach, because it's really about leveraging the skills that people have. So before I go on to the next example of the sort of things we do, this is just a sort of a question for the audience to muse about. You can put yes or no in the chat, or you don't have to say anything. But if I suppose does anybody here play any games? Any games on a smartphone or on a tablet, or maybe even on a computer? If so, just take a moment to think about the games that you play, the ones you like, the ones you've tried. Do you play games that were familiar to you? Do you like trying new ones? And why do you do it? You don't have to expose yourself by answering. I'm just trying to get you to reflect, because one of the things that we've also done a lot of work on is the use of games. And we actually started straight after Circa with some additional funding, which was to create or co-create games for touchscreens with people with dementia. And that was a fantastic, really exciting project. And if I tell you, that was 2004, so this was before the iPad. Touchscreens were still a really rare and novel thing in 2004. But we had a fantastic time, and we just worked with people who were living with dementia or sort of early stage or mild MCI. And we listened to them about what they were interested in and what they enjoyed. And we had a designer who had come from the games industry, and we just made lots of prototypes and tried them out. And they very quickly told us if they liked them or not. And we did that for a few years. And then when iPads and so on were released, quickly followed by the Game Store and the Google Play Store, we moved our attention to readily available games, because then we thought, well, that will save us the time of having to make them. And so this is where we sort of went next. And here is an example from some of that research. Okay, so this was part of our early research where we actually asked the question, do people want to play familiar games? So we had people playing solitaire, or how do they respond to novel games they won't have seen before, like the one you just saw, which is called Bubble Explode. And we found that games like that were actually accessible for people. Bubble Explode is an easy to pick up game. You pop strings of bubbles, as you saw. You also perhaps noticed, if you looked at the camera on the gentleman's face, he was very engrossed. He was very engaged. And what we found when we extended this was a study where we did groups, we trained, this was a day program, we trained volunteers and staff, and then subsequently family members, if they wanted, to support people with dementia to play games, to how to help them select games, and how to identify if they needed support. But we also did some analysis of the impact of playing. And what is really interesting, you can see the person nearest to the camera is playing solitaire, but other people, some of them are playing on their own, some of them are playing with, oh, what's happened there? It's gone. Sorry. I've gone the wrong way. There we go. Some of them are playing on their own. Some like to play with another person. Some like to play with a volunteer. But these games actually engage our cognitive domains. So when we're thinking about rehabilitation, the idea of maintaining functioning, game playing involves a lot of different cognitive functions. So attention, many of them have some reading in, they have visual perception of cues or hints. They have following rules. So they're good for concentration. Sometimes there's problem solving. And so using games is actually not just a frivolous sort of thing. It's a very useful pastime for people with, well, for anybody, but particularly for people with cognitive impairment who can benefit from this as well through the engagement of their cognitive actions. But it's also something that can be rewarding, and we've had lots of examples of people who start playing games with their grandchildren, how they find it relaxing and occupying for them when they can perhaps have difficulty reading or keeping track of TV shows and movies. The games are very sort of here and now. And in a couple of slides, I'll give you show you the website that we created where you can get recommendations. But the other sort of game that we've looked at, and I think I sort of introduced it without meaning to, is games where you actually stand up and play. And these are called, these are sort of EXA games or motion-based games. So what we use, or have been, is we were using the Xbox, which you may have heard of, with a Kinect camera. Now, they stopped being offered for sale in around 2016, which was a bit unfortunate because we were just starting a 3-year project about them. However, we were able to find reconditioned ones and so on. But what was really interesting, and why the Xbox in particular with the Kinect is very suitable compared to something like the Wii, the Nintendo Wii, for example, is because you don't need any controllers. And so that's another really important thing when you're thinking about introducing, especially tech-based interventions for people who already have cognitive impairment. You need to be mindful of how much cognitive demand or cognitive load is required to learn to use it. So with these systems, for example, you've got two things. You've got the game itself, so you need to learn to play the game. Same with the tablets, but you've also got to control the device. So you've got two sets of things that put some cognitive demand. And so we found that things that particularly the ones where you don't need controllers really are much more accessible for people, such that when we did a study about people learning to play, which was published about, I don't know, maybe 2018, we found that even people with quite substantial cognitive disability, by the end of the one session in a group, they had improved, and we showed that everybody improved, and they kept improving over a 20-session program. So I'll just give you a flavor of our bowling activity.
First thing.
Yeah, there, yeah, down, yeah. Be good.
Now, what you can see there, you saw the lady got a strike, but hopefully you got a sense of how the game worked. People control it by moving, makes some upper limb movements. And basically they are controlling an avatar on the screen. So there's a little person on the screen who bowls the ball. But when we approach these games, and similar with the tablets, we don't get, we've developed an approach which doesn't mean that we spend a really long time going, so now we're going to use a computer, or now you're going to control an avatar and so on. We introduce the games and get people familiar with the games, and we found that makes them much less scary or concerning to people. And playing in groups is really wonderful for not just the cognitive engagement, but you saw there's a little bit of physical activity and there's a huge amount of social engagement. And before the pandemic, we had been able to implement this program into about 18 different settings around Ontario. And some of them managed to keep going in the pandemic, and certainly quite a lot of them restarted their groups with their bowling twice a week because it's such a popular activity. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour of some of the ways that we're using technology to sort of meet that remit of maintaining people's abilities and bringing things into the environment to support them to do things that they enjoy. Okay, so
So
just
for people looking for apps, either for themselves as a person with dementia,
sorry,
or as a family member or caregiver,
sorry. So yeah, so we have a website where you can find apps that have been evaluated for their accessibility, and we have guidance. So say if you're interested in art games or puzzle games or you're looking for familiar games, it tells you how to find them. We also have on our website have manuals for things like the bowling activities, and also members of the team and myself wrote a book about using some of these technologies aimed at this is not an academic book, it's more aimed at services or people at home, and it has a chapter written by people living with dementia by a care company in Australia in different ways that we can use technology. So I want to go on now to talk about the two projects that we're doing currently, which sort of one of them particularly arises from the bowling game work that we did, and it's a project called Bootle Blast and Dementia. And we started our project with the bowling because we were interested in how that sort of technology could work as a group activity. In fact, we had seen it in action whilst we were doing our tablet project. We saw in a day program we worked in, they had been donated an Xbox, and we saw them running a group, and we thought, well, this looks really interesting. And so we set out to try and create our own model of a group and then test it and see what sort of impact it might have. And we noticed that during the games of bowling, even in one session, people would become more confident in their movements. So we had a lot of people who use walking aids, walking canes or rollators or whatever, and people who would get up and they would walk and they would adopt a bowling stance, even though we didn't tell them to do that. And so we became very interested then in the potential for these activities to actually have some additional impact beyond the social and the cognitive and the sort of the little bits of exercise they were given. So working with one of my team members and students, Erica Dove, we started looking at how we could create a game that would actually deliver exercise, and particularly thinking about balance, because people with dementia have a greater risk of balance and also balance problems, and also fall risk. It can be up to 8 times higher than older people without cognitive impairment. And given that falls are the biggest cause of unplanned hospital admissions, reducing fall risk is obviously very important. Like people without cognitive impairment, exercise can improve balance, and there's been lots of studies attempting to improve balance. And of course, we're particularly interested in the idea of using some technology in this to make it perhaps more accessible, more available, although we know that most therapy programs, or not so many, are done in groups because of the issues of tailoring it to each person. But we were interested in the idea of whether therapy and video games could be useful for this population. And we do know that X Games can be more engaging for people than just following a sort of an exercise program. And about 18 months, maybe 2 years ago, we were very fortunate to meet the team from Holland Bloorview, who were working on a similar problem, but with young people who have musculoskeletal disorders. And they had made a system called Bootle Blast. But at that time, it was just for upper limb movement, so upper limb rehab. And we, of course, were interested in balance, which is more lower limb. However, over the time we've known them, so first of all, as part of Erica's PhD study, her first study, we got to try Bootle Blast along with every other game system that was on the market to try and see what features make them most suitable for people with cognitive impairment, so MCI and dementia, And we also tried Bootle Blast just with the upper limb games, and people liked it a lot. They thought it was a lot of fun. So based on that, we talked with the team, and they were actually already planning some new exercises for lower limbs. And I'm just going to show you some of them here. So you can see, hopefully, this example of a game. This is Step Stepper, and you can see the little animation on the side, which is basically leg raising and lowering, and you can see the idea of the game. So that's one of them. And then the next one is the window washing, the sit and stand washer. So you can see again, the movement is getting up and down as you play the game. Hope you're getting a sense of these, and I'm not going too quickly. So you can see the idea of how they work. You can see a little person down here who's waving their hands. Okay, and then another one where this one is marching in place and also sidestepping. So this one's called Space Race, and you move your spaceship along. And these can all be tailored in speed, slower or faster to the individual. And that's one of the key things for adapting these for older people. And then the fourth lower limb game is this one called Astro Bootle, which is a trunk lean, as you can see from the animation. I hope these are clear to you. So these have been developed, as say, from the team who were working with young people. But the reaction we got from the first set of games was very positive. People didn't feel there was any problem with the age appropriateness, because that's a concern we often have when we're looking to adapt games or adopt games from other sectors. And people felt it was fun, and because they can respond to the speed for different people, that means it can be tailored to individual needs. So we're very excited when these games were going to be made, and we're now, Erica, as part of her PhD, is currently assessing feasibility of Bootle Blast, and we're just currently starting recruitment. We're just waiting for one more piece of paperwork to actually start people using Bootle Blast, and this is what we're trying to find out. So is it feasible and acceptable for older adults with dementia? Can people use it safely? Because obviously we're concerned, and I should add that the study is following a protocol that was used with the young people and their families, and it's done at home. So we want to know that there's no what the risk, if there's any risks attached. Do people enjoy playing it and doing it over time? Does it have some potential benefits, some efficacy for older adults with dementia in terms of balance? And are there any barriers and facilitators to actually doing this at home? So this is really following the protocol that has been was tested with younger people, although not with the lower limb games, that was with the upper limb. So we've adopted that to try and make it more comparable. So we're currently recruiting. We're looking for 10 dyads of individuals with dementia and a family carer who's ideally living in the same location so they can play together, because it can capture 2 people playing if they want to. They will pay these 4 games, and there's more sort of detail available, but essentially the system itself has a lot of built-in measures. The cameras today are very effective at doing lots of with the data they can capture, and also the analysis that can be done by the system, so we can assess the impact on people's movements and how free their movement is and their balance, etc. As I said, the idea is to participate at home over 10 weeks. And please contact Erica. I'll put these up again at the end if you think you might be interested in that. We're very excited about it. As I say, it's really a brand new, the games are brand new, and we're really excited by the potential for having something for people living with dementia, because one of the other things that we've looked at in as part of the background to this project is rehabilitation for fall risk in people with dementia, and there is virtually none currently available. So this could be a big breakthrough if this system or some version of it could be useful for people with dementia who, as I said, have greater risk. Okay, so that's Bugle Blast. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the other current project that we have going on, which is about task sequencing. Quite different. So switch to thinking about, so what time is it now? So it's like, yeah, sort of middle of the day. Maybe you've had breakfast, you've got dressed, you've left home, you've maybe navigated the transit system, or you've gone and bought coffee, you may have gone to work, you may have done grocery shopping. You would have done a whole set of different things during the day. And we know that difficulties completing these everyday sort of activities, either in the home or outside, can lead to a loss of independence and an increased need for care for people with cognitive impairment. And the sorts of difficulties people have include things like missing bits out when they're doing things, getting interrupted or distracted and off track, repeating steps because they got off a track or couldn't keep track of which bits they were doing, and also difficulty finding items. And we've certainly seen a bit of that. And certainly this is an issue that we've been working on in different forms, again, for a really long time, probably since about 2008, with a view to trying to increase our knowledge about, well, if we could support people to keep doing these everyday activities, what would that require? Because it would be beneficial. And we know from some of the other projects, as I showed you, like with Circa and with the bowling, you know, we can leverage people's retained abilities, and also we can introduce some new things that they can use if they're lower cognitive burden. So we've been working on this in many different ways in a number of projects to try to understand what are the actual difficulties, what underlies them, can we detect them, can we put something in place to help people keep on track? Because we do know something really important, which is if you think of an activity like, I don't know, making a hot drink, maybe you have some tea or coffee or something in the morning. The actual elements of that task, for instance, getting the hot water, like maybe filling the kettle, getting a mug, getting a tea bag, maybe getting milk or sugar or whatever you take with it, honey, something. And the physical elements, the pieces of that, are generally well retained by people. However, the cognitive bits in between, the bits that say next step is this, don't forget to do that, have you got this, sort of the internal process that allows us to complete them, those are the bits that are more affected by dementia. So we have this idea that can we determine when those bits are not working so we can put something in their place, which potentially could be some technology that either currently exists or would exist in the future. So that's really the background. So we're doing this project now, and in relation to those objectives, as I just said, we want to see how people keep themselves on track when completing tasks. So think about things you've done today, and some of them might be when you get up in the morning and you're deciding what to wear, and you think, well, what's the weather going to be? Or where will I be? Will I be inside? Will I be outside? Do I need to walk anywhere? What footwear do I need? Do I need outer garments? What's the temperature going to be, etc. So there's all sorts of cognitive pieces. So how do we keep ourselves on track when we complete tasks? Can we also identify if and when people go off track when they started a task? What does that look like? Another important issue is identifying individual differences in task completion. Because if I asked everybody on the call if they make hot drinks, then how do you make them? Whilst we might all have the same elements in it, we might do it in a different order. It might take a shorter or longer time, depending on how quickly our kettle boils, or if we have a hot water provider in a different way. And that's important for distinguishing what elements of completing a task are down to individual variability and what are reflective of somebody having cognitive impairment and they're doing it in this way because they've got stuck or they can't get back to what they were supposed to be doing. And as I said, this is for us to develop potential future support to prompt people through their tasks to keep them independent for longer. So what we're currently doing is we have access to something called the Home Lab at Toronto Rehab, and it is an apartment if you've never been, and it basically has a bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a dining room, sitting room area. And we've picked these 3 activities. These were some of our previous OT students who helped us identify the tasks. And so these are the 3 that we've chosen because we can do them in the Home Lab and we can watch people while they do it. So we're using sort of a triangle. Oh, sorry, I don't know why my computer is making noises. A triangulation approach. We're actually collecting 4 different types of data. So we're going to we are video recording, and you probably gathered from my earlier slides, we use video recording a lot because it's incredibly helpful for really studying the actions that people are taking. You know, you saw the gentleman who was playing the game on the tablet. Well, actually looking at sort of micro expressions and people's concentration really helped us to demonstrate how much people with dementia can concentrate just like everybody else when they're really engrossed, because that's really important marker of people being engaged. Well, here we're using videos to observe the different movements people are making. And we're also using eye tracking glasses. And these are examples of them here. And they look like normal glasses. And they don't require a lot of calibration. So they're very easy to set up. And I will show you a little clip of what that looks like in a moment. We also have a wearable, like a watch, to collect some physiological measures like heart rate and steps and movement. And that's because we're trying to see when people go off track, if there's any indicators of that we can detect. And we also have, true to the sort of OT aspect of the team who've helped develop this project, we have just somebody observing, because typically when OTs observe people carrying out their daily activities, they are there with a piece of paper, ticking things off or writing them down. And we're doing this in the Home Lab, and it takes about an hour to do the 3 activities. And we do also let people drink the hot drink and have a biscuit with it. So here is an example of somebody carrying out the activities, and this is from our data, and you can see some of the different things that we're looking at when we analyze the data. You can see from our video camera, one of them is the person from this angle getting the sheet. Another one is from over here. And then this is from the eye tracking glasses. And what the red circles show is the focus of the person's gaze. And what we're really interested in is this idea that I said of how do people keep themselves on track. So we're using these eye tracking to literally see where they look during each of the steps of the task. And it's really, really fascinating. And here is a little example. I hope. No, for some reason I need to go out of here. Oh, no, I don't think you're going to be able to see it. I'm sorry. Sorry, it's gone out. It's taken me out and it won't share the screen on that. I apologize. But you can see here, this is someone folding laundry, and it basically shows how they look around. Okay. So at the moment we're about halfway through recruitment for this project. We've had about 15 people without cognitive impairment and about another, I think 5 or 6 who have some cognitive impairment who have taken part. We're still recruiting for this project. And we encourage people who are interested in this to get in touch either with Christina or with myself. You can also email our lab email address, dementiatechlab@gmail.com. And Erica, who is running the Bootle Blast study, is also the lab administrator at the moment. And if you're interested in any of our resources or about the games, the ACTO dementia games, you can go to our website, which is www.datelab.com, or you can just contact us and we can give you any more information. I would also say, I mentioned that we are currently also testing, we've just started this week, testing the Canadian version of Circa, which is a conversation support for people with dementia, and it can be done with on a one-to-one, one-to-two. Currently, it's being done in groups, in day programs. So if anybody is interested in that project, and we have another project starting in September, which is funded by the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, which builds off the task sequencing to look at self-queuing. And we'll be doing that. We'll be asking people if we can come into their homes and see how they complete some activities at home, where they will get different cues from the familiar environment versus coming to our home lab, which is an unfamiliar environment. So we have quite a lot of different things going on. They're all geared up to supporting people's cognitive abilities and keeping them doing the things that are important to them. And it's very much also, we try to inform not just the organizations we work with, but also the people who come and take part about the type of tech that is available, about things that people can use in themselves that are accessible. We can advise about, say, tablets that people can use, and they're not all as expensive as iPads by any means. We have a good selection that we can show people, and you might have noticed in the photo I showed of the group that we have ones with a plastic case, which can also be a stand. And so we've got quite a lot of different things we can help people with if they're interested in trying any of these things. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm happy to take any questions about any of this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Arlene. I'm just going to quickly share a screen just in case anyone did want to know how to reach out. So in addition to all the contact information that has been shared, if you did want to reach me at the Alzheimer's Society, my contact is below. Ruth from the TDRA, her contact is also listed here. And just from hearing all of these things that we were talking about, I would like to encourage anyone who is interested in research and perhaps eligible to participate in research to consider participating, because everything with your participation, we are really able to access or gain information to help us create a better life for those living with dementia, but also find out things that can support. So I do encourage you to participate. We do have a few minutes